is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 3 of Talking Dogs podcast. If you just get in here, feel free to look around the channel, check some stuff out, hit a like and a subscribe for us, hit that notification bell if you guys want to get notified when I post new content. Now, the Talking Dogs podcast is me basically just rambling on a bunch of dog stuff. The other content on the channel is more directed. It has a more of a specific subject in mind when we're talking about the dogs. Um, but I feel like there's so much going on in the coon hound world, and there's so much going on in the training world of things. When we're training coon dogs, we have a plethora of options. We have so many options that we can choose from when we decide to train a dog. We have bloodlines to pick from, we have different breeds to pick from, we have all these different things, and then we also have different trainers to take advice from. Everybody trains a little bit different, everybody looks for a little bit different thing, so it turns into a real cluster. It turns into a real mess, especially if we're just getting in or we've only had a couple dogs under our belt. It's still a long road. It's such a long road to figure out and get a grasp on actually training these guys, because for one, you have the most variable element that you could possibly come across, and that is a dog. And they have individual personalities. Some like this, some don't like that. Some have more of this in them than they do of that. So it turns into pretty much like a game of chess when we're training, because we have to always, one, we have to stay ahead of the dog, right? If the dog gets too far ahead of us, then we start losing control of the dog's training per se. We're not losing control of the dog, we're losing control of the dog's training. If we're not quick enough to adjust to the dog getting ahead of itself and getting out ahead of us, right? Because last thing that we want to do is see a dog that has jumped ahead a few steps and then try to train it those steps that we just seen it, because then it becomes an issue. So we have all these variable things that we can take into account and take into consideration, and there's a lot of things that we don't take into account and we don't take into consideration when we're training. And I think as long as we are very responsible on making our mind up on what we want to teach, what the dog knows, and when we want to teach things, the process becomes such a easier process. I think the hardest part that we go through as training coon dogs is the wait period, okay? And I think this gets in a lot of guys' ways. I know this got in my way a lot when I was a teenager, when I was first getting into training coon hounds and stuff, is the patience. You have to have the utmost patience when it comes down to training these dogs, because it takes months and months and months. I mean, you're talking 6 months at a minimum in the regular world. 6 months being a prodigal dog that's doing it all at 6 months old, and that's still 6 months of waiting, all the way up until I've had guys on the channel, wait on dogs 4 years before they did something. When we get into the mindset of we want to train a dog to do something, when we get like these house dogs or your house pets, dogs that don't work, and hunting and tracking and treating raccoons is a excruciatingly difficult task. Okay, so there's one big giant hurdle in that. But when we're talking about these house dogs and stuff, they're trained within 2-3 months. Have them potty trained and have them sitting and shaking and rolling over and doing all this stuff, and it's a breeze. It's such a breeze when it's compared to training a dog to go out here and complete a difficult task, like a severely difficult task. Because when we get into breaking things down, we have the coon that is doing its own thing. That's a variable there. So the coon can do anything and everything that it wants to, and we have no control over what that coon does in any sense of the means. We can come close, We can come close by trapping them and cutting them loose and things like that. But for the most part, when they're out there in the wilderness, we have no control over what they do, how they run, what tree they pick, if they want to go through a fence, if they want to go in a culvert, if they want to go on top of a barn. We have no control or say over what that coon does, and the coon's ability varies. Okay, so that's another thing too that people don't take into account either. Is you have coons that will just zip right up a tree, and you have coons that absolutely won't go up for hours, man. And then they'll lay down the most difficult track in the most difficult terrain and just keep on running and give that dog a run for its money. And you have to have a dog that is very well trained and very good at its job to complete and get these coons put up these trees or wherever they go up. And then at the end of the day, you can get there and the coon have crossed over or went halfway up and jumped out. There's a lot of variables when it comes to that, and there's a lot of variables when it comes to the dog. And when it comes to us training, we have to be very adaptable. And I think that's one thing that we discount when we're training coon dogs is how adaptable you actually truly have to be to train a coon hound to do something. And we have to switch up woods and get better woods and try to find coons that are less pressured, coons that might not run them all night, give them easy stuff to work on, get a process in them, and then switch them around. And we have to develop the dog into a stage where it doesn't matter what kind of coon it comes across, it's going to put it up. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there. Not to mention when we're talking about balancing feeds and we're talking about, care of the dog, and we're talking about, time and effort and gas money and, equipment, and it's such a huge thing. And you can pick a sliver and do a sliver of it, or you can take it with all that comes and do the whole entire thing. It doesn't really matter. And what I'm saying that pertaining to is we can go out with a flashlight, a dog, and a leash, right? We don't have to have a GPS. We don't have to have a shock collar. We don't have to have a fancy light. We don't have to have a truck and a dog box and stuff. And we can go out and get that and do it that way. Of course, that is going to be a way more difficult way to do things. But at the end of the day, it's still possible to get it done that way. Or we can go full blown technology up to date on all of our stuff, latest and greatest equipment, and get out there and get it done. There's no difference between these two guys. If they're getting it done, they're getting it done, right? And you have every one up and down in between there that as long as your dog go in the woods and tree a coon, you're good to go, right? So I think that's all the sport really requires. And on the flip side of that, talking training, you have to be very versatile training dogs. And that's what we're kind of talking about is the variability of a hound itself up against you, and then also up against the coon, right? Because we have so much things going on that we have to be able to be versatile and pay attention. And I've said this in many, many videos. The more you have the ability to judge a dog and look at a dog and see what a dog's about, and kind of understand what the thought process is that the dog is going through, what actions is it actually showing you, is a easier way. It'll be a lot easier to get things figured out and get adapted for that dog. There's a lot of, for instances that can be had here. You have some dogs that you'd have a pain in the neck. You would never get it done if you were to start them off showing them a cage. You'd have to do the baby steps to work them up to that. Other dogs, they don't want the baby steps. They want the real deal. And we have to know when to switch in and out of which thing. And when we understand, like, okay, when I run a drag for a dog, it is learning to track and it's learning to use its nose. But if we take the dog in the woods prior to seeing it run a drag, and we take it to the woods and we see it push a track and we see it finish out a track, we know we can skip doing the drag stage. And if we see a dog strike up, if we see a dog tree up, then we know we can skip this stage. And the way that I like to do it, and I've kind of said this on the channel before, is like a 6 month plan that you kind of put them on. But we need to walk them hand in hand with the idea of every stage of training, the percentage of them treeing a coon on their own goes up a little bit, right? And right at a pup, you got like a 0 chance, not gonna happen. Full with them with a drag, you go like a 2% chance, and it just builds on and builds on and builds on from there. By the time we get to the cut out stage, and we're cutting a coon loose and they'll go out and they'll tree that, we're at about a 80 to 90% chance that this dog will tree its own coon without help. If we get a dog to this stage and we get it into the right situation, into the right cut of woods, that dog is absolutely going to go and hit that hot track and do exactly what it showed you when we cut the coon loose. But we have how many steps and how many processes to go from a puppy, for one, to a dog that's big enough to handle itself with a coon and not be afraid, and then all the stages of processes of training to get from a scented drag all the way up to cutting out a coon. So these kind of go hand in hand, and we walk them along together. And by the end of it, we have a dog that has been well developed, that has been developed on pace with its growth. We have a dog that has been kept on a steady level of pressure. We're not spiking pressure on a dog. We're not doing things that put the dog off. We are staying on course and we're staying on par. And I think that it takes a real eye and it takes a lot of paying attention to do that. And I think a lot of guys, which I know plenty of guys that do this, is they get a dog and they just put it on the chain and they leave it out there. They do not fool with it until, it's 6 or 8 months old, and then they try it, and if it does nothing, they put it back on the chain, wait it out for about over a year, then they bring it back out, try it again. We can do it this way, but I feel like it's not taking the easy way, but it's taking the way that takes the most away from the dog, right? So if we leave a dog sit on a chain, now don't get me wrong, I've trained this way before too. I absolutely started off this way. The advice that I was given when I first started was, don't mess with that dog, don't pet that dog, don't praise that dog. Only time that dog gets any interaction is when it is hunting, and the only time it gets any praise is when it's done its job. That is it, and it's on the chain, stays there, off to work. Now, they're hunting dogs. I don't really see anything too extremely wrong with that sense, and it does get benefits. I've trained a dog that way, and there's all these different ways to look at it. The way that I look at it is by the time we get a dog ready to get into the woods and tree its own coon, we have a dog that we know well, we have a dog that knows us well, we have a dog that knows a process, our process. We know the way the dog operates. By this time, we have learned the way that the dog sounds. We have learned the way the dog pushes tracks, the way the dog comes back to you. We have got over the hurdle of recalling the dog. We have worked out different commands with the dog that we've needed along the way. We have a rapport, a solid rapport and a solid respect amongst you and the dog when we train the way that I believe that I preach on the channel to train, the way that I train, and the way that I developed into training over the years. And when we get there, when you have a good idea, when you can get a sense of your dog, and you can look at your dog and say, oh, he's a little bit tired, oh, he's a little bit energized, oh, he's gonna rip. You have the idea, you have that little connection to look down and look at your dog, and you can, almost in your own brain already know what that dog's going to do when we cut it off the leash. And then with that comes, right, so when we have a dog that we know well, dependability doesn't become such an issue, right? It doesn't become such an issue, doesn't become such a worry. Our confidence in our dog is way higher than a dog that we haven't had off the chain in 6 months, haven't named, haven't really petted much, haven't done anything with, and we take it off the chain, and then immediately we're like, oh, that dog's not toned. He's not going to come out of the woods. That dog's going to run that track. I don't know. I think he's running deer. Let's zap him. It's really easy to not know a dog and get yourself into these predicaments that if you knew the dog, you would know better, right? So if we would know better than our dog to be doing stuff that it's not supposed to be, because we have been there, we've trained it, we've broke it, we've got this out of it, and we've worked this out. And one big thing, and I keep beating the dead horse there, but one big thing that I have tried to maintain through all dogs is you will come to a stage to where the dog has showed you exactly what you wanted to see. Okay, so if we have set out to say, let's get the dog onto the tree. Let's get the dog treeing today. So we get the dog out in the yard, and we get the dog treeing, and then we go, we've got it done. We've got it done. And then we just go and we sit in the house. We sit in the house for weeks or a couple months and go, I guess I better go get that dog out and take him to the woods. You take him to the woods and he's still the same, goofball that you had out a couple months ago, but he did that one good thing. We have to make sure that we're not ignoring when to build momentum, right? So when we have a dog that we've done good work on and it showed you something really good, very next day, maybe we take it and put it in the woods. Even if we don't feel like it, and that was my point that I was trying to make, is getting to the woods, even when you do not feel like moving, when you do not feel like getting up, when you do not feel like, making that effort to take the dog to the woods that you already know what it's going to do, and it might not be that great, right? Those times count, and those times count almost more than not, because when we have a day where we have it in our head, I should be taking that dog to the woods, but I don't want to take that dog to the woods. And then we get up and we do it anyway, and we get down there and that dog finally does it. It finally trees up, or it finally lets off its first strike, or it finally does this. You go, this is why I do this. This is why I get up and I go to the woods even when I don't want to. And I have been a 7-day-a-week hunter. I have been a once or twice a week hunter, 4 days a week hunter. I have been, laid dogs up for months and then hunt them. I have been through it all, right? When I was in hunting 7 nights a week, that is the best time that I ever had coon hunting. And it's not even like I treat 1,000 blue million coons. I come home wet. I walked through rivers. I walked through waist deep snow. I walked holes in my boots, lost my GPSs, lost my dogs. I have been through the ringer on that 7-day-a-week hunting, but it is always worth it. And that's what really that hard work that you put in, the effort that you put in, the effort that the dog puts in night after night after night after night, it becomes almost like a accomplishment that you have defeated, this laziness that you get into. You defeated this doubtfulness, the doubt in yourself, the doubt in the dog. You get into a position to where I'm doing this, right? This is what I do. When we get to that 7 nights a week stage, it becomes what you do, and it becomes a real part of you, and it becomes right down into your bones. And the longer that we do it, I feel like the more that you miss it when you stop. And I think I went from a straight 7-day-a-week hunter to no days a week hunter because I had no dogs. And that right there plagued me, and it bothered me, to my core for a lot of years after that. And that's why I say, coon hunting is one of them sports that will get into your blood, and it will stay there, and it will fester, and the longer that you don't get out and do it, the longer that you don't go. Hunting squirrels is fine. Hunting, beagles is fine. But there's a certain excitement that you get when you hunt coons, because every single tree's a crapshoot. Every single time you cut's a crapshoot. It's always a gamble, man. It's always a gamble. Uh, let's take a break real quick and go. I got the dog show stuff on. Y'all know what to do. Mailbrook5 at dogshow.com gets you 5% off a dog show product, $200 or more. That money will get kicked back to me here at the channel. So I really appreciate if you guys went over there and shop Dog Show. I got some merch out at teesbyjoe.com. If you guys want to go over there and check that out, I believe they have a shop there with just my stuff. And then also, if you guys want to contact me here at the channel, you guys can contact me at the channel email at mailbrookstudios@gmail.com, all lowercase letters. And I will try to get back to you guys as soon and as fast as I can. If you guys have been sitting in here for the past 20 minutes and you like what you're hearing, just get down there and like and subscribe for us. I would really greatly appreciate to get the channel grown up and keep the ball rolling with that. With that being said, I have my drink pre-made today. So, snag a drink off that. And let's jump back into it. So, I was talking about hunting 7 days a week and how it really gets into your blood and really turns to be a really huge part of your life and really a huge part of your personality and just who you are as a person, as a man, as you grow, especially if we're starting off as a young kid. And there's a lot of growth that happens over just getting woods times for yourself. Like I said on the previous podcast, hunted completely solo for the majority of the time that I actually coon hunted and trained my own dogs. Just different situations. I preferred to get in the woods by myself. And it becomes hard work, it becomes task, and you really earn it, and you really get out there, and you really put the time in, and the work, and the effort in. One thing that I will say is every single dog needs to have a really good, decent amount of solo time. Straight up solo time. Not hunted with other dogs, not around other dogs, just you and the dog in the woods. And the more solo time you get with a dog, and the more solo time that a dog gets in the woods, number one, the more independent that dog will be. Number two, the more you will be able to build a nice connection and know what's going on with that dog. And this will translate over in all facets of coon hunting. And we will get things done that we wouldn't normally get done. And we'll get it done at a better pace, especially when we are solo one-on-one with dogs. With that being said, there's nothing wrong with putting multiple dogs in the woods at one time. It's a headache if you're only one guy. I've done it. I've ran, 4 or 5 dogs at one time with just me and one other guy, and it's a real headache, but it's also still coon hunting, and it's also still fun, when they split tree, you're walking, 700 miles, you ain't got, can't get there quick enough, but there's a lot of things that we can catch, and there's a lot of things that we can correct and fix with a dog when we hunt them solo. And I think that's one thing that gets a little bit different here on my channel, is because number one, training a dog solo from a pup that has no other hunting dogs to hunt with or learn from, and you train this dog from solo to going by yourself, there's a lot of things that you have to face up, and there's a lot of things that you have to learn, and there's a lot of things that you have to pay attention to, because dogs that are solo are so much more sensitive than dogs that are running with other dogs. And I've said this so many times on the channel. It's real easy to kind of work through that stage of, this dog got stubbed up for something funny, and now he's not one to act right in the woods. Okay, well, we got these other dogs to pay attention to. Let's just forget about him. for a week or two, and then we'll start paying attention to him again when he stops acting that way. But when we are taking the dog into the woods and it's just us and that dog, and we have a dog that has went from, oh look, he's going off, oh he struck over here, man, he's really checking out this tree this night, and then it goes to he just wants to stand by your feet, or things like that. It is so frustrating to have to work through that without any other thing going on besides you and this problem. You really have to face problems head on when we train solo, and it's not the hardest thing in the world to do. Once, like I said a little bit earlier in the podcast, is when we're leveling up our training and matching up our, the growth of the dog and our training together at a good pace, then we can kind of get a good feel. Oh, he's going to need a week laid up. Oh, he's going to need, 4 or 5 days on. He's going to need to lay up for about a good month before I try him on this. And we're just going to kind of, click it back and forth like that until when we start taking the dog out, we're seeing a lot of those clicks happen at the same time. So if we have a 10-click process to get the full thing run in them, and we're slowly putting one notch in that click every time, and then, laying them up for a while, bringing them back out. Oh, I see 2 or 3 of them happening this time. Okay, we'll train them this next time. Then we come out, bring them out again. Oh, well, he's got 5 of these things put together now. And it's just kind of this game to where we have to balance the time laid up and the time out in training. Because training on a dog every single solitary day is not going to get you anywhere, because we have to account for other things like age, size, mentalities. If we stub the dog up, we have to account for all these things. And I've tried to show that everything that I have done with Tilly, besides taking her to the park, which I've taken her to the park, I believe 4 times. I've taken her to the park 4 times and let her sight chase squirrels. Of that 4 times, her actually physically seeing the squirrel and chasing the squirrel in the direction that the squirrel actually went, and getting, either right to the tree or just a little bit past the tree, is only been a handful of times. Maybe about 8 times, I'll say. About 8 times. I have dropped her and let her chase probably after about 20. So we have that ratio, but the ratio is starting to turn in the favor of she's seeing them, she's chasing them. Last time I had her out, she watched them go up the tree. But here is what I'm going to tell you guys. I posted the short on the channel of doing tree work with her. That was the very first time that I had done tree work with her. Up until that point, she would not click that they are going up the tree. I put one little 10-minute session of tree work on her in my yard, took her straight to the park, and cut her after squirrels. And when she got there, she finally looking up the tree. And that's what I'm talking about when we want to see this up and down dimension. Just 5 or 10 minutes on the tree where they'll actually bark is good. And it benefits you so much more. It'll go such a long ways. And after that day, the same day in fact, she started watching the squirrels go up the tree, and she started going twice as far as she had been, right? So just that one little kick in the butt gave her enough to go twice as far as she's been in the woods by herself, and it also gave her they're going up. So when I sat her up and taken her to the park anyways, before we had tree work on her, kind of hoping that she would click it on her own and I could just skip that. But we have to plan ahead. I've had a squirrel frozen in the freezer for, about 2 months. I've had a squirrel in my freezer frozen for about 2 months, and just waiting for about this time to where it's going to be, which one are you going to do? Are you going to do it on your own, or am I about to teach you how to do it? Next stage for her is going back to the park and seeing if she's going to tree up when she sees them go up, or we're going to put her back on the tree and get some tree work on her. And if that doesn't work, we are going to go ahead and we're going to trap one, and we're going to see if we can get her to tree up on the cage, and then get her to cut one out and see if she'll tree it up after it's been cut out. And if she'll tree it up after it's been cut out without being coaxed to tree it up, then we'll take her back down and we'll put her in the woods, and we'll see if she'll go ahead and just tree up. And then we'll have her to the stage of, I see a squirrel, I'll cut you in that direction, you'll pick it up and tree it. Okay? And then from there, we can kind of dissect it down to, I'm not finding them for you anymore. I'm not watching out for them. You got to watch out for them. And then when they start picking them up on their own and they start peeling off and they start looking for them, then you have a dog, number one, before it's ever hunted on its own, knows the process of treeing a squirrel, knows what a squirrel is, knows what a squirrel scent is, knows where they live, knows where they go, and it'll chase them a pretty good distance. And then once they start going, oh, I don't need him to find them, I can find them, then they're hunting. And then once we get to that stage, which I'm hoping by the time season rolls back around, she will be able to have, a good season of squirrels coming down to her. I'm going to keep her in the woods as much as I can. I'm going to get her out to the comp hunts if I can. We'll just see how that goes, That's a little bit of sprinkle of squirrel dogging in the Coon Hound Talking Dogs podcast. That's what it is. Drop a comment down there below, guys. Let me know if you guys are running coon dogs or squirrel dogs, because I know I have both on the channel. I greatly appreciate all you guys that come in here and watch my content all the time. You guys are absolutely the best people. I couldn't be more happy with that. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come in and check out these videos. I'm just in here rambling on for the podcast. Well, when I get when I get the time, we'll try to get some people coming on. But I really want to test the waters with the podcast and see kind of who and where this thing is going to go, right? These podcasts, it's really hard to sit here and talk for this long. I mean, honestly, when we're talking about dogs, there's so much to talk about. And I kind of want to get back on the subject here for the next little bit. Picking a dog, that could be a very key thing. That could help you along the way, and that could give you a headache. That can give you a crapshoot. You don't know what you've kind of gotten. So we need to pay attention to that. I have the video of that. I might remake that video because I have the background music playing in it, and I just trying different editing things, see what people like, and it turns out that just sitting down just like this and making my videos is the best thing for it. I do have the mic, which the mic was giving me issues by not wanting to be as loud as not without the mic, which is fine, but the phone picks up a lot of background noise. But I think we're going to wrap this one up right there. And shout out to all you guys that have came in and checked out the podcast. I hope I entertained y'all enough for you to hit a like and a subscribe on the channel for me here. I'm going to try to get out videos at least twice a week. I'm going to do my regular kind of stuff. And then the podcast, I'm going to try to keep that dropping. And then, as usual, try to sprinkle in the squirrel dog and stuff as it comes along. But I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Please hit a subscribe for me. Keep them treated.